What's up, guys? Nima here. I ended up getting the Nintendo 64 NSO expansion pack that happened just a couple days ago. Got it at launch, picked it up for a couple games, really just one game, but whatever. It's gotten a lot of pushback. There's been a lot of people not happy with it. I just kind of want to discuss that whole thing. First off, let me just name some of the games that are out for it and the ones that look good, I guess. Mario Kart 64, which a lot of people picked up so they could play online together. Paper Mario is supposed to come out pretty soon. Star Fox 64, Mario 64, Banjo Kazooie is going to be out soon. Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, A Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Namely, and Majora's Mask not out yet. Ocarina of Time is. I namely picked it up for Ocarina of Time, if I'm being honest. And I felt like that was worth it for me. Now, there has been so many issues with it. Not just that ROM, but with all of the ROMs. And they've all had something. There's a few similarities that they all share. And then there's been other things that certain ones have, other ones don't. One has been delay. And this one seems to be person to person. And I don't know if some people are imagining it or if it's the systems that are doing. I don't know what the problem is. I've heard a number of people complaining about Ocarina of Time having a delay. I haven't experienced that at all. At the same time, I had quite a bit of delay playing Yoshi's Story, which was a fun game, by the way. Like, I've never played it before, really enjoyed it. But I did have a delay. Like, I noticed a delay. Haven't heard many people talk about that. So it just kind of depends. Like, it's very interesting how that is working out. I've also heard people talk about Mario Kart 64 having a delay. I would argue that it just has kind of sloppy controls. Like, it has N64 controls. Like, they're a little sloppy. I didn't really experience too much of a delay. Now, the one other complaint that people have had another complaint people have had has been, their ability to stay connected. And it is a peer-to-peer connection, which if you didn't understand, like, Nintendo doesn't actually operate this giant server. These machines are actually connecting to each other. And so a lot of people are talking about when they're playing like Mario Kart 64 that there is a pretty big lag. If somebody drops in speed, it lags down the game completely and it ruins the game. There is quite a few people complaining about it just wrecking their entire experience with their friends. There again, that is something I didn't actually experience for myself. I didn't have that problem, but I do live in an area that I think has pretty decent infrastructure, so I think we got good internet, and we probably don't have that issue, and I played with people rather local to me. You know, the furthest person out, I think, is about a state away, so it wasn't like a big jump, but yeah, I had no real issue with that either. Speaking of Mario Kart 64, though, there is at least one level in there, Choco Mountain, that is known to be foggy. On the original versions of this game, and even most of the emulators, this level is rather foggy. And there is no fog, or very little fog now. And for some people, it's a good thing. For some people, other people, it's a bad thing. In retrospect of what they're doing, and what the ROM is doing, what the machine is doing, it's actually kind of doing its job. See, this fog, and not only in this, it's really big in Ocarina of Time as well, but the fog that was used so much in N64 era, PlayStation 1 era, they had it because of draw time, which is essentially like clarity over space, if you will. Like, the further something was, the less clarity there was. And this would get to a point where it's just like almost comical, so they would put in like this fog, this like haze, because the machines just could not match like that graphical intensity over time. Now, like, the Switch is fully capable of doing that, as well as, you know, whatever. So they took the fog out to actually add more clarity. The problem is a lot of these games kind of built the game, or built these levels, if you will, around that fog. So when you take it out, you're actually now seeing stuff you're not supposed to, and you're seeing like bad engineering, if you will. Like, you're seeing some rather weak programming in some form. Like, you can definitely tell it with like Star Fox 64. There's a spot in there, especially when you're playing in multiplayer. There's this area towards the edge where Like, that fog is there to hide something. And Mario Kart 64, same way. Like, as you're turning in Choco Mountain, there is this one area where, yeah, you are supposed to have the fog, because if you don't, and you can see clearly, you can see that the trail just kind of falls off. And then, like, right when you hit the turn, oh, it's there. Like, again, just kind of, yeah, it was there to hide blemishes. And so they removed that. And, I mean, in an exchange, it's because the machine is better, because it actually performs better, but not so great. Again, Ocarina of Time, the Water Temple, that's going around everywhere. Everyone's talking about that. And I would say I haven't got that far yet. So I haven't experienced it. And I think even more so, and I think this is what's important about this expansion pack. It wouldn't mean anything to me. When I go to the Water Temple, when I finally make it there, seeing it in the current state that it is in now, no fog, the water's kind of, it has a weird texture to it, it wouldn't mean anything to me. And it wouldn't because I've never played it. I don't have the nostalgia for it. This is my first run through with most of these 64 games. And that's why I think I'm more receptive to this than a lot of other people. People who owned a 64 as a kid, they have this nostalgia, this memory of how these places look. And it means something to them. For me, and for a few other people who are getting it, we're getting it because when we were kids, we had a choice. We had poor families, we had one choice. It was PlayStation 1 and 64. What are you going to get? You go PlayStation 1, right? Well, at least a lot of us did. Twisted Metal's on there. So yeah, now I don't have that nostalgia. And going through some of the stuff, I don't have the problems a lot of people do. And I understand that people are saying, like, well, but these are worse ROMs. Like, it's not even as good as the original, but the ROMs themselves are worse. And I would argue that. I would argue that a little bit because we ran some Wii U ROMs. And for one, they all have like this dark filter on them. The lag is also very, very prominent. Like, literally, if you don't believe me, break out the Wii U, get Ocarina of Time. Look at just the contrast of brightness, for one, not to mention the lag. There was definite lag. The lag that people talk about on the N64 NSO expansion pack with Mario 64 is actually the same lag that was in the Mario 64 remake or redo that came out here last year in the Mario 35th bundle. Like, that lag is matched. Now, I will say, with that in mind, I really wish they would have just released that version of the 64 game instead of, like, this new one, or I don't even know if it's new. It's the NSO version of it. But the one from the trilogy was, in my opinion, quite a bit better. And only for one reason. And it's because of the controls. The controls are so weird in this version that's on the expansion pack, as well as the controls for many of the games. The control mapping on this was horrible. And that is a legitimate criticism for this game. There's parts of, like, Ocarina of Time I'm playing through and it'll tell me to push a button. I'm like, I can't. I don't know how to do it. Like, you have to take a little class to learn the controls. And it does it for all of them. But with Mario 64 specifically, it's literally wired backwards from what you're used to. Like, the jump button is not the jump button. Or if it was, it's some weird way. Like I said, I don't have the nostalgia for it, but I have played Mario 64, and it just doesn't feel right. Like, the buttons should be switched. And I know you can go back and kind of change them, and that's all available to you. But it's actually quite a bit of work to remap it. And you don't have it there for you, so you have to, like, take a picture of it and then go back and remap it, and it's a pain in the butt. All I'm saying is, like, that was kind of a mess, and I don't know. I think there was better ways to do it. That's all I'm saying. If you can play, Final Fantasy XIV on a PlayStation 3, you should be able to remap this easy enough, and they really dropped the ball on that. But I would say ultimately, I'm happy with the purchase. I like the idea of what's coming soon. I love playing Ocarina of Time, and for me, it's worth $35. One of my friends, or $35 extra, I should say. One of my friends did tell me, like, you're paying a lazy tax. And he's right, I am. Like, for me, yeah, $35 extra a year, and I don't have to get any ROMs. I don't have to have any sort of system set up just specifically for a few Nintendo 64 games I want to play. No, they're already on a machine that I'm going to be playing. They actually look really good in the OLED, by the way. I got all of that, and it's only an extra $35. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, and that's a lazy tax for sure. And for some people, it's going to be worth it, especially with the promise of a Majora's Mask and Paper Mario and other games like that. Like, yeah, I get the value. But for some people, it's not. And I'm kind of just curious your thoughts on it. Like I said, I think there's good and there's bad. I think it's being dragged through the mud a little harsh, but ultimately, Nintendo knew that they've been stringing people along for a while. It's this idea of overpaying because we're going to get something better. And then people freaked out when they saw the price of this and that it was so much more money than they thought. With all of that in mind, this launch had to be perfect. And it wasn't. It just simply wasn't. And so, yeah, I get it. And we're still paying a little bit more now because of the promise of something that, something gets better. There's been a data mine that says we're going to get like 38 Nintendo 64 games. And I think like 52 Sega Masters games. And there is a mention of a third console. All of that. Okay, yeah, that's totally worth it. If we get it. Nintendo does that all the time, though. Hey, pay extra for something we're going to deliver later. I don't know. The DLC as well, if you're into Animal Crossing, I have heard there is rumor that it's not just going to be Animal Crossing, that other Nintendo specific, like, I don't think it's all Nintendo DLC, but some DLC will be included with it. And I'm not basing any of it off of, like, my review of any of that. I'm just going off of what I have in my hand currently, and it's Ocarina of Time. Is it worth it for pay extra $35 for me to play it on my Switch? And the answer is yes, for me. But anyway, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Have you gotten it? Are you just not interested? Also curious what would make you get it. Like, what would be an add-on, whether it be a 64 game, or maybe the other console is like a 3D, Game Boy Advance, something like that. Anyway, guys, you have a good one. Take care.